Welcome to the Veterinary Pulse podcast. My name is Jordan Ben-Shia. I'm the Executive Director of the VIN Foundation. Veterinary Pulse is the heartbeat of the profession. Join us as we talk with veterinary colleagues about critical topics, from student debt to mental health, and share stories. Stories connect us as humans, as animals, as a veterinary community. This podcast is made possible through individual donors like yourself and our technology partnership with VIN, the Veterinary Information Network. Thank you for being here. A couple of show notes. This isn't how we plan to launch the Veterinary Pulse podcast. In the last few weeks, things have become a bit abnormal, and we thought it best to focus our energy on getting helpful information out to our colleagues instead of fixating on a perfect launch. We ask you to bear with us as we pivot to adapt and adjust, with hopes we are providing you with information you find helpful. Thanks for being patient with us, and as always, we welcome feedback. Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining us. This is Jordan Ben-Shia, and wow, have we had some news the last couple of weeks. Our world has just sort of been mind blown a little bit. And in the midst of everything that's going on, I thought we would take a chance and speak with Dr. Bree Montana, who runs the VIN Foundation's Vets4Vets program. And welcome, Bree. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jordan. I'm happy to be here.
And so we're going to kind of just, it seems like the best thing that we can do right now is sort of offer people some help and guidance and just sort of some calming, possibility of a resource here in the midst of lots of craziness as we start to, find our way in this new path. So, Bree, would you mind just taking a few minutes and kind of helping us understand what Vets4Vets is, how it started, and how the program works?
Yeah, I'd love to. So back in 2009, 2010, the economy was really in the dumpster, and I was practicing medicine, and I'm in a somewhat remote area. We are in a tourist town. I live in North Lake Tahoe, so we're very dependent upon the local economy and dependent on people being able to travel. And my clients are sort of people with Learjets and people that service them and people that clean those guys' houses. So my practice is pretty stratified, but really sensitive to changes in the economy. And at that time, the economy was pretty terrible. And I was having a really hard time with my practice. I had two businesses at the time, and I was really struggling. And I had the feeling that I was the only person that was struggling. And a group of us got together. Paul Pion invited a bunch of VIN members up to Davis, and we all got together and talked about the situation. And it became clear to me that there are so many of us in the same boat, but we weren't connecting with each other on that level. We were also ashamed of our struggles and, kind of wanting to show everybody our highlight reels and not really showing them what was going on in our home movies. So we talked about, gosh, wouldn't it be nice if we had the ability to reach out to a colleague, and a colleague could just talk to us one-on-one like a normal human being, and we could recognize how similar we all are and how similar all of our struggles are, and thereby become stronger, because I do believe we're stronger together. So at that time, we started Vets4Vets, and it just started with a phone number, and folks would call in and we would talk, and from there we have built out so many programs. I like to say, if you have a problem, I'll make a program. We created Vets in Recovery for veterinarians recovering from any form of addiction. We started Cancer Vets for veterinarians who have been diagnosed with cancer. We have veterinarians who have been through bankruptcy and come out the other side and found their sunshine there. We have just, so many different ways of helping people. We have a mentor match, and I think the most meaningful thing for me is my ability to connect one-on-one with our colleagues. And even if I'm talking to a colleague who's going through a super hard time, it just becomes a strengthening moment for both of us, because we both recognize that we're here for each other. And that's the beauty of Vets4Vets. It's veterinarians helping veterinarians in making our profession as great as it can be.
Yeah, and it's so wonderful just what you do on a day-to-day basis and just the comfort that you're able to give people. And can you kind of sort of help people understand the type of tangible support that you provide? Like, say somebody is interested in reaching out to Vets4Vets, it can be a very vulnerable or scary experience for some. And how does that process work?
So easy. They can email me directly, vets4vets@vinfoundation.org. It's vets, V-E-T-S, number 4, vets, at that little @ sign, vinfoundation.org. And I would say our response rate is pretty fast. We usually get a response back by email within 24 hours. They can also call directly. They can call between 9 and 5 Pacific time every single day of the year at 530-794-8094. And somebody will answer the phone. Occasionally it'll go to a voicemail and we'll have to call back. Very, very rarely. I think we almost always are able to jump right on that phone call if we're not on another phone call at the same time.
That's wonderful. And that's being able to have that. We'll put that information in the episode notes so you guys are able to easily access that. So if you're driving or walking, you don't need to worry about writing it down at this moment. And so once they reach out, Bree, what happens next?
So if they reach out by email, then I'll typically respond myself, and I'll try to get that done within 24 hours, and I'll address their concern, directly. Often really frequently, I'll invite people to call my team and schedule a time to chat with me, because I feel like just that connection is so helpful. It's so helpful to know that you're not alone and that your problem is one that so many people have been through. I mean, I have talked to people who have diverted drugs from their supply, and we find them help, and we help them get into recovery. I have talked to people who have just made really tragic errors in medicine or surgery, and I have been able to connect them with other folks who have been through that and have come out the other side. I mean, there's no human foible that we haven't really managed. And gosh, I think it's so helpful to know that you're not alone in making a mistake or making a bad decision or a bad choice, or perhaps you made all the good decisions and all the right choices and the cards just didn't kind of play out in your favor and you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. There's nothing wrong with that. We're here to help.
Yeah, so often in life, right? Plans don't really work out the way that we expect them to.
Way too often. Right now.
Yeah, right now, right? Right now is a perfect example. And I think one thing that it seems like we hear so often with Vets4Vets is just how much people appreciate that when they reach out, what they're getting is a tangible one-on-one response and conversation with you, and almost as an immediate triage, just to be there and to listen, and then to help determine sort of what's the best approach from there. And can you talk a little bit about the different, you mentioned the different groups, Cancer Vets and Vets in Recovery, but if you can talk a little bit about Dr. Susan Cohen's group and what the other options are, that'd be great.
Yeah, we have 2 amazing psychotherapists that help us out. We have Dr. Susan Cohen, and she runs this really great support group. They meet every Thursday night at 9 o'clock Eastern time. And good news for everybody that's quarantining themselves. You can meet with the support group from home using your computer. And they like to do a video and either sound through the computer or with the dial-up, whatever gives you the best sound. But people show up in their jammies with a hot cocoa or a glass of wine, and Susan does such a wonderful job of shepherding the group. Every week she sends out a little email to all of us saying, here are some things to read, and it's always something that I'm like, oh man, I'm so glad I got that today. It was just the message I needed. Or maybe I'll have that message today and maybe I'll need it tomorrow. The group works with everything. Sometimes there will be a veterinarian there that's a new grad and they're already on their 3rd job and they wonder if this is the right profession for them because they've stepped in poo so many times. And, the team the group, because they become a supportive group for each other, will help that new grad to recognize, what went wrong in that interview process or what they were, noticing in their interview process. Other times it'll be somebody who's all the way on the other side of the spectrum and they're getting ready to sell their practice and retire. Or it's someone that, is having a divorce and they have personal stuff going on and they just need some collegial support from people that kind of are in the same tribe. And that's a beautiful group that meets every week. Other things we have to support-wise, Dr. Michelle Gaspar, who is a veterinarian and also a psychotherapist. Sometimes we hook people up with her so they can have somebody to walk along with them while they find some actual boots on the ground therapists. We don't offer therapy through Vets4Vets, but we have folks trained with good solid therapy chops to walk alongside you while you find a therapist, and that can be really helpful as well. Those are sort of two of the more esoteric support options that we have. And then, of course, our mentor match. We try to hook people up with folks who've been through similar problems. I have a couple people in our mentor match team who have been through bankruptcies, and if you are considering a bankruptcy or reconsolidation, they can kind of walk through that with folks. And sometimes I'll have someone who is trying to get into shelter vet medicine, so I have a couple folks that work in shelter vet medicine right now, and they can talk to them about that. And I'll just make the plug that I'm always looking for more mentors. So if you're interested in helping folks, it's a nice thing, a nice way of giving back.
Yeah, and a lot of Vets4Vets is peer-to-peer support, which is, I think that right now, hopefully, one of the benefits of this time that we will see come out of this challenging time is really communities supporting communities and people supporting people, and an increase in kindness and support in the midst of this very uncertain and unknown time, and that people can find solace that they're never alone. Somebody is always here, and it can be completely confidential. And so, sometimes it seems like, what we find is that people just writing an email and sharing their information, that seems to be therapeutic enough. And that if you even reach out to them, you might not hear back, because for them, just that email was sort of an offloading and, their own sort of therapy that they needed at the moment.
I think that frequently, I hear that frequently from folks. God, I'm so happy just to know that I'm not alone in this. Just being able to tell you what I'm thinking helps me feel better. And the cool thing, I mean, almost every phone call, it doesn't matter how deep the tears are when we start the phone call, there's almost always laughter in the middle and towards the end, because we just have such a common thread. I mean, things that suck, man, they suck for everyone, and we've all stepped in it, and it's just so comforting to know that that we're not alone in our struggle. We really all are moving things forward together.
Right. And so what do you think, in this time where, as we've mentioned a few times already, there's a lot of uncertainty and people are unsure what's going to happen, next week, let alone tomorrow. I mean, I think our stock market went within 16 market days from an almost all-time high to a bear market. And so we're looking at very uncertain times. What are some of the tricks or tips rather that you rely on as a full-time practicing veterinarian and a practice owner, along with running Vets4Vets? What are some things that you rely on to sort of your tools or tangible, tips that you do that you feel make a difference?
Well, one of the things that's really happening a lot right now is the news is constantly searching for a scarier and more impactful story, and they're really digging and searching for numbers and pictures and kind of dramatic stuff, because that's what drives the news. And frankly, the news is scary. The truth is scary. So I think that it really helps us when things are bad. And this is what I do when I'm in surgery. And I hit an artery and I hear that whoosh sound. First of all, stick your thumb on the news. Stick your thumb on the artery, and then it just take a minute. When you feel your body ramping up, and we all are right now. We're all feeling our bodies ramping up. When we feel it ramp up, take a minute. I like to say, breath, body, brain. So what I do is I stick my thumb on that artery. I take a breath and I relax my body, and then I remind myself that this is something that I can cope with. So we want to start with our breath, and we start to we read online, or we read on our Facebook group, or we read on our in our team that people are talking about shutting down your hospital for a couple months. Well, let's just take a breath on that. Figure out if that's going to be right for us. We're going to take a breath before we do anything. We're going to relax our body, and then we'll allow our brain to do its job. And our brain needs to say, is this really a dramatic problem right now? Am I in danger? Am I physically in danger? And chances are excellent that we're not physically in danger right now. And so we need to remind our whole body of that so that we can access the whole brain. Because when we are in danger, really all we need to be doing is running or fighting. And once we tell our brain, and our brain figures out that we're not in danger, then we can make better decisions. And I think that one of the most important things that we need to remember is how awesome we are at biosecurity. We're the soul of biosecurity on the veterinary medicine side. We're here to keep the animals safe. We're here to keep the people safe by keeping the animals safe. And we know so much about containing disease and containing infection and sterilizing and keeping things clean and being, we deal with more poop than anyone, and we know how to clean it up faster than anyone. So we need to remember that we are safe and we know how to keep ourselves safe. If we're immune suppressed, if we're one of the at-risk population folks, then we know what we need to do. And if we're not, and we need to keep our hospitals open so that we can provide emergency care, we know how to do that safely. We know how to assess people and help them understand how to keep a safe distance. And we know how to make people follow rules, and we're good at that. So we just need to remember that we live in the sweet spot. I think that's really important, and I think it's so helpful to just, when you hear too much news, figure out how much news you need to hear to make good decisions for your life. Turn off the rest of it and do something inspirational. Create something, reach out and help someone. The thing that is best for me when I'm having the worst time is to do something for someone else.
Yeah, I think all those are really good tips, especially I think one of the things that you mentioned is realizing that you have the tools within you, you know what to do, and you have the best practices. And it's so easy in this current time frame and news cycle to just feel overwhelmed as, oh my gosh, I have no idea what's going on, and I don't know what to do, and I'm completely out of control. And if you just take that moment, and even, recently we've been talking about just talk to yourself. Like, that's totally okay.
Yeah.
Talk to yourself and say, you know what? I've got this. I can only control my actions and reactions, but this I've got, this is what I know. And you can start with that framework and make sure you're sort of reality checking yourself and not getting caught up in this sort of, endless, right? And I think part of it also is in the midst of all of this, the best thing that we can all do is stay healthy. And the best way to stay healthy is to take the best care that we can of ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that doesn't mean being selfish about it. It just means, remember that if you're drinking fluids and getting sleep as much as you can and eating the right foods, that you are going to stay healthy, and you're also going to be prepared to take the best care of your clients and your patients and your staff and your loved ones.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to tell you what, one of the things that we're doing with my team here at the hospital, we do a couple things that I think could they're just really helpful for us. And so I'll tell you guys about them and try to roll them out if it makes sense for you. We put a whiteboard up on the wall, and on one column we have our long-term goals. In the middle column, we have our weekly goals, and in the far right column, we have our daily goals. And I noticed that as this COVID-19 thing has been rolling along, and it's definitely impacting us a lot. We just had a beautiful snowstorm. I mean, we have this amazing sunny day with Hollywood snow coming down, and I've been hiking to work with my huskies through 3.5 feet of snow, and it's just beautiful. And all of our ski resorts have closed indefinitely. And, so many of my clients work in the ski industry and the hospitality industry. So that's impacted our hospital. And I've noticed that our daily goals, they were a lot different a couple weeks ago. Today,
you've seen them shift.
Yeah, you've really changed. Our daily goals, first of all, we weren't making them for a little while. I think we were all sort of in a panic mode. And so yesterday we said, you know what, we need to do our daily goals. We like to do them at the beginning of everybody's week run of shifts. and we were like all behind. So we did them yesterday. Mine was to drink a lot of water for my daily goal, because I know I can do that. And of course, and I'm working on push-ups, and I have a couple of physical goals like that. And then my intellectual goal is to work on my rounds that I have, or my course that I have coming up for VSPN, and kind of polish that a little bit. So I've made my goals simpler and simpler as life has gotten harder and harder. But I've kept my long-term goals, because I know that this is a short-term problem. It's a hot problem, and like all hot fires, it's going to burn fast. And we will be back.
Right.
We'll be back to our normal life. It'll, be a new normal. But just like a forest fire rips through the forest, it cleans some stuff out, and it helps us have better habits, and it helps us value things more. And that's what's going to happen here. We'll be back to business as usual. However, I hope we'll be back to business as unusual. I hope we'll be more appreciative of our colleagues and our opportunity to help others. And I hope that as we start filling out our long-term, weekly, and daily goals, that maybe we'll add something a little more spiritual into.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think that there is so much, back to what you were saying, just about you're reacting, and in the moment it almost seems like you forgot the goals because there was panic. And we really have this rare opportunity, which doesn't feel like a happy thing in the moment, but when you start to get all of this information, there's this moment that you have when you are given information before you react, and that moment is where all the power lies. And that's the moment where you really have the opportunity to, in some cases, take a moment and step back and say, okay, how am I going to react to this, right? Because so often we just instantly react, and that instant reaction can just, snowball, right? And we just get so stuck in this instant, immediate, news crawl, news, so much information. And if we take a moment, in that moment between when we get information and when we react, that's where we can control that situation. Control in general is really an illusion, but right there, that's where it lives. It's sort of the sweet spot, and it's so hard to remember that in those moments.
It is. It's so tempting. I mean, honestly, the news that comes in on our social media and on the television, if you listen to radio, the news that rolls in, it's screaming, me, now. But if we can keep our schedule and go to work and, make our breakfast, if we're working from home, or if we're not going to work, if we can keep our schedule, keep our life going forward because who are we? We're veterinarians. What do? We learn and we help. So if let's say our hospital has scaled back and we're not going to work for a while, oh my gosh, what a beautiful time to take some CE. What a beautiful time to paint a picture. What a beautiful time to play some games with our family, to do all of those things that we never have time to do. It is not going to last long. Before you know it, we're going to be digging out of the storm. So let's take some time to really be with the people that matter to us, be with ourselves, sit with our dreams, and reassess some goals and move forward. Because if we're moving forward towards something, then we're not moving away from something. We're moving in a positive direction. And I'd love for us to take this opportunity to live in flow.
Yeah, and I think that it can seem, for some people who have kids at home and have no idea when those kids are going back to school.
Oh my God, so hard.
Or it seems like they're never going back to school. Or, all these different things that are piling up, whether it's bills or anything. I would say maybe a good idea is to even, as you mentioned, goals. Sometimes it's really small, very small, attainable goals, and what you can do right here. Exactly. Try to drink one more glass of water today, and that might be the goal.
That's okay.
Or try to take a 5-minute walk. That might be the goal, right? Or whatever it is, even just those little miniature goals. There's little things that everyone can do in a day, that even the tiny goals. And I think what you said also about, keeping a routine is vitally important in this time, and that can be really hard when everything's up in the air, right? I mean, your schedule's all changed. You've got kids at home. I mean, you've got work scenes all off. But so if it's not, keep a routine if you can. But if it's not possible to keep a routine, definitely focus on little tiny small goals.
just day by day. And just as you say, I think, we have no idea how long this is going to last or what the full impact's going to be. Nobody does. But what we do know is what can we do right here and now? And what sort of small goal can we do right now that just today I can accomplish that? And one thing I've personally started doing is at the end of every day, sort of keeping like a joy thing of
gratitude journal.
What today happened. Yeah, similar. Just like, what did I do today that brought me any amount of joy? And it might be 30 seconds, right? It might be 5 seconds. I mean, let's just start with what we've got, right? And if we just start with that, and then at the end of the week, you look at that, and it could just be on a piece of paper or whatever, like today, just looking at my dog for 4 seconds, who knows what it is, right? But whatever that is. And then I think that when you start to look back on that, it's like, wow, that's something positive to really look at. And, or again, my goal today, drink 1 more glass of water. And then over the week, that's 5 more glasses of water. Those things build up and in a positive way. And so I think those things are, very tangible things that you can do to sort of hopefully help. And at the same time, understanding that you're not alone. Like people are here and we're here to help and support. And, the VIN Foundation is here with all of our resources, which are all free and available at no cost to every veterinarian. You don't need to be a VIN member, and veterinary students. And, we're really just here to help, and you are not alone. That's the most important thing. And I think that sometimes it can be really scary when we're in dark moments in our life to feel like, oh my God, nobody's gone through this before, and shame and embarrassment. And the thing is for sure, someone's gone through it before.
Well, and chances are, if it's something really dumb that you've done, I've done it twice. So you're in great shape. I did it once, and then I did it again just in case it wasn't a bad enough idea the first time.
Just to make sure, right? Was that a bad idea? Yep, sure check that. Still a bad idea.
I have so much experience, and the only way to get experience is by doing dumb things, and I've just got a ton of it. So
that's true. Well, it's true that a lot of times you only learn by failing, right? And
I'm just so willing to try something dumb.
We're all a work in progress.
So I do. Well, I hope that I hope we could share the message that we're here for you. We're here for you every day. And I would also say, if you really want all of us to know, all of us in this profession, that can be so isolating and it can be so challenging. It's so hard on our hearts sometimes, and it's so helpful to know that we've got a buddy out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Bree, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you taking the time out. I know that you've got a really busy schedule and a full practice and a boarding facility and everything, along with an adorable husky puppy.
He's in treatment right now, and he's probably causing trouble.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate you being here with us.
I'm happy to be here.
Thanks, Bree.
Now.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Veterinary Pulse. Please check the episode notes for additional information referenced in the podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and share a review. We welcome feedback and hope you'll tune in again. You can find us on social media, and thank you for being here. Be well.